Hello and welcome. My name is Mary Cummins, and today I'm continuing my reaction to the book Fuel by H.G. Tudor. This chapter is entitled, Why Not Stop? And this is a question that Tudor and other conscienceless ones get asked regularly. Why do they continue to impose these negative frequencies on those around them? Then I will explore what Tudor might mean when he says me and my kind. What or who are they? Basically, the fall of Lucifer is about losing face. And it is a pride mechanism. And we all want to be thought well of. Yet, because we care, we are often subjected to the manipulation of these ones without a conscience. And what we will learn is that their psychic dominance skills cannot be underestimated. I will close by talking about how these ones without a conscience have had control on our planet for a very long time. They have lost it down through the ages, through the major freedom movements that have happened, which culminated in the Constitution of America. And what we see today is that they are bound and determined to go to any lengths to gain control back of our planet. As I said in the introduction, H.G. Tudor is often asked why he does not stop his negative and abusive behavior, as it keeps him trapped in negativity. He is asked this by family and friends and perplexed lovers. To a person with a conscience, this is an untenable situation. Why would anyone want to stay in these negative frequencies, we wonder? H.G. Tudor responds by letting us know that this query comes across to him as an accusation, and then tells us that he is addicted to feeling powerful, to being superior, and to receiving admiration. He explains that he is superior because he has the power to make anyone fall in love with him, and he can make anyone miserable, and this fuels his ego. There's an opening sentence that Jackson Mackenzie uses to start one of his chapters in his book, Psychopath Free, that tells us how one can benefit and learn from working through interpersonal abuse. Here's the quote. "Your strengthened intuition is the greatest defense against a manipulative person. It is a skill that can never be exploited, and once learned, it will serve you a lifetime." End of quote. He is speaking here about people who have moved out of abusive relationships and have successfully changed themselves and moved on with their lives. Many who were traumatized and publicly humiliated or character assassinated have risen above their circumstances. They have seen evil, looked into the empty, lifeless eyes, and felt fear to their very core, as Jackson Mackenzie endured. And there are many others. Greg Reese tells a story about an incident that happened to him when he was just 5 years of age. His family took him to Toronto, where his uncle was graduating as a Jesuit priest. An incident happened that felt like a dream to him. And it was only when he read Kathy O'Brien's book, Transformation of America, where she relates how she was a victim of mind control and how she was ritually abused in an MK Ultra program for years. As Greg read her book, he started to remember what had happened to him. He was staying at that time in the Jesuit house. He was in a cold basement, surrounded by people in dark robes, and in the center there was a lady with a blanket over her, and she seemed lifeless and unconscious. The guys in the black robes said they were gods, and they wanted to make him a god. They handed him a dagger and gave him instructions. And so Greg just pretended to do what they asked. He didn't want to stick the knife in her. He was trying to please the gods, but couldn't go ahead with it. The gods were sorely disappointed, and he said the basement filled with dread, and that feeling was directed at him. Kathy O'Brien says that the Jesuits are heavily involved with CIA in MK-Ultra trauma and mind control. She told Greg in an interview that the Jesuit gods probably made a mistake when they chose him for the ritual. Greg became a rebel and eventually also wrote a book that helped put the incident behind him. Today, he has real leadership qualities and influence because he processed this experience by writing it out. This learning through experience gives true empowerment, and people can sense it. Here's a quote from this chapter by H.G. Tudor. He says, quote, "I love the way I can make a person feel ecstatic, miserable, terrified, and upset. I love being a god." End of quote. He admits that he is completely captured by his need for constant fuel, and that we have more free will, but that we have places and spaces where our free will is as dead as his, against the thing that we are addicted to. In comparison to the empaths who have addictions that put them at a disadvantage, such as phobias, drugs and alcohol, or food addictions, Tudor feels that he is smarter, and he has chosen an addiction that benefits him. It is the best of all addictions because it keeps him empowered to do as he pleases. All he is sacrificing is emotional attachment, which he sees as unimportant anyway. Empaths suffer through their addictions, but he lives in paradise. And how many people wouldn't want this, where you don't have misery as a result of other people? Many people would want this, and maybe most of us at some time or other. Think of the many people in service who, if they get promoted, love to impose rules and regulations on the people under them. They delight in putting people through the hoops. During the COVID lockdowns, many of us got to experience that firsthand. It is tyrannical leadership and is anti-father. We're going to talk about the father archetype, which can be loving or unloving. The loving father's love is conditional, and he is impersonal. The law is colorblind and status blind. He is fair, just, respectful, and does not compromise. When he corrects you, he will not condemn you. H.G. Tudor and his kind, and our own inner critic, doesn't really want to have anything to do with the discipline of loving father. When the unloving father archetype is active, he sabotages any healthy boundaries. He criticizes our every move under the guise of looking out for our best interests. He is tyrannical, ruthless, rigid, shaming, and scornful. He is inconsistent, and you never know what he wants from you. And no matter how good you do something, it is never quite enough. There is always a new hill to climb, because he has to condemn you and make you wrong, and this gives him an out. Very early in life, H.G. Tudor learned to lie and cheat, and he got away with it. It's the footstool kingdom. He turned friend against friend and learned how to control other people so they gave him what he wanted. He was led to believe that he was right, but literally, it was destroying his soul even if he had one. When he says, quote unquote, me and my kind, what or who is he? Is he a fallen angel, an automaton, or just a sold-out soul who is so addicted to his parasitic fuel that, like the drunkard, he chooses to die drinking? Tudor's pride will deny any definition but his own. The one consistent definition is that he is an ultra form of narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath, which is just his terminology of being a god. In the last chapter, I mentioned the Anunnaki that came to Earth and through genetic engineering created automatons as workers. These ones still live among us, and like their creators and Tudor himself, they lack any form of conscience, empathy, or compassion. The difference between the Anunnaki and their soulless creation is that the Anunnaki believe that they are gods. When examining Tudor, it is hard to see whether he is one of them, or just a captured drone who gathers fuel from the downline in their fallen angel lowerarchy. Obviously, Tudor would not like to be seen as a drone. To prove that he is not a drone, Tudor relates that he goes to a therapist and gives us a smidgen of truth, as a drone could never do that, about his dialogue with his therapist. This is an enticing form of theater that uses the attraction of the quote-unquote what-if factor that makes people tune in next week to find out what is happening in the ongoing saga. This simultaneously creates familiarity, sympathy, and attraction to an anti-hero character that he plays to draw mass sympathy through that familiarity and attraction. And here then is a little extract from the conversation between his therapist and himself. The therapist is Dr. E. Dr. E is questioning him about his addiction to fuel and if he might be open to other options that might be better. Tudor states that he knows that his way is right and that he always adopts the best way of doing things. So Dr. E responds, "Would you like to try a new way?" And this is a quote, "Bearing in mind that you just admitted that you always adopt the best way of doing things." End of quote. Tudor hesitates. And then he writes, this is his quote, "I should not have said that I always adopt the best way. That has chained me to always seeking out the best way, even if it contradicts my stance." End of his quote. Then he responds, quote unquote, "I may want to try, but I could not." Because we see H.G. Tudor as nasty, and then he goes and admits that he said something that might have put him in a bit of a bind. We feel relieved and hopeful that there is an element of truth, and through sympathy, he manipulates us yet again. This is subtle manipulation, and good people fall for it because he is not slamming us with anything nasty. It doesn't bother him at all that we know that he is a liar. If we are at all interested in his work, then he says that we deserve to be manipulated. Like Tudor, government institutions get accused of deliberately harming people, and they tell us they're going to form a committee to look into it. Then, when the pressure has died down and people are on to something else, they come out and say, well, there was no evidence to support that claim. A whole nation then just moves on, as it is difficult to break through the programming. As Saint Germain has said, quote unquote, the cost of freedom is eternal vigilance. And now we come to the conclusion. This planet has been run by the Anunnaki, a group of Luciferian Satans, who for a very long time have been the royal and aristocratic rulers of every nation. With the coming of personal freedom through the blocking of the Persians at Thermopylae, then the golden age of Greece under Pericles, the formation of Roman common law by Cicero, the embracing of the Magna Carta by the barons of England, and the stunning burst of freedom that came with 1776, and the following American age of Judeo-Christian ethics. These Anunnaki have worked relentlessly to gain back the control and power that they lost to the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. They have infiltrated this government and the governments of all nations. They are making their final play at complete world domination through surveillance and global genocide. Like Tudor, they thrive off of the trauma and division, the hatred and deception, and the very physical blood of the people. As Cathy O'Brien, one of the greatest first-hand observers of this evil, says, they use their media to give the people the impression that they are more powerful than they actually are. This is exactly what Tudor does in every interview. These ones who know how to tell a story and to capture the belief of those who care. We are simply their possessions, their cattle, and their food, their labor, their entertainment. We, the people, need to change, as Cathy did, from within, by becoming aware of how we are being manipulated. It is the subconscious and unconscious parts of the empath that want to have the kind of freedom that H.G. Tudor is talking about, where you don't care anymore. The head brain and the gut brain are where we have pride and blind obedience, where we want both revenge and the sloth of compliance. You have to do this, you have to do that. Oh, it's too much. The government should be taking care of this, etc. You don't want to look stupid, and you're busy covering your tracks of being a victim due to your own laziness, which is a shaming form of the Stockholm Syndrome. What we see in those who have survived the abuse, they stopped wanting revenge. They chose forgiveness for self and the other. It is not just forgiveness at the intellectual or gut level, but becoming mindful of what is going on at the feeling level of the heart, the cardiac brain, and then doing something about it from that level. This brings true freedom. Remember when people wanted to stone Mary Magdalene for her sins, and Jesus said in John 8, 7-11, "He who is without sin among you, let him throw a stone at her." End of quote. And because they knew they couldn't fool the master, they all walked out. Jesus redeemed the soul of Mary Magdalene, yet she herself had to come to that same understanding. She had to rise above being defined as a victim, a fallen woman, and she chose to love Jesus in a genuine way, outside the sensual need to extract favors or fuel. This is the way that leads to genuine empowerment. Let us come out of all these divisions that have been imposed upon us. These extreme views that are paraded in front of us have nothing to do with us. It is kabuki theater, and it is vile to its core. Let us stop giving our attention to their shenanigans and get on with the true values that we profess to believe in. Thank you, and I'll see you next time for the next chapter.